Hey there, Vintage Car Chronicles fans. Those of you on Spotify, Deezer, Apple Music, and YouTube, this is a deep dive episode specially made just for you. And today, we're taking a ride, a luxurious one, through the history of the Lincoln Continental. An icon, wouldn't you say, in American automotive history, I mean.
Absolutely. The Lincoln Continental, it was more than just a car. It was a statement.
A statement about.
Luxury, style, ambition. Think about it, over 55 years of production.
Wow, that's a pretty impressive run.
10 generations. A brand that basically created a whole new category. The personal luxury car.
I never thought about that, but you're right. And so many design trends that we still see today. They started with the Continental. So we've got a lot to cover, a whole stack of amazing stuff here.
Yeah.
History books, design analyses, even some pop culture tidbits.
We're going to dive deep into all of it.
What are we looking for in this deep dive? What's the mission, so to speak?
Well, for me, it's that aha moment. That moment when you understand why the Continental captured imaginations for so long.
I like that. So it's not just about the facts and figures. It's about understanding the essence of the car.
Exactly. The soul of the Continental. And maybe, just maybe, we'll figure out if there's still a place for big, bold, luxury sedans in today's world. With all the SUVs and electric cars taking over.
Now, that's a question worth exploring. All right, let's rewind the clock. Take us back to the beginning.
It all started with a dream, really. Edsel Ford, son of Henry Ford, decided he wanted to create the best car in the world.
Oh, so we're talking Ford family history here.
We're talking about ambition. We're talking about legacy. Edsel, he wasn't satisfied with just churning out another Model T.
He wanted something different, something special.
Exactly. He was captivated by European style, those hand-built cars, They just oozed luxury.
And that's where the name Continental comes from.
You got it. It was meant to evoke that continental flair, that sense of sophistication, that European elegance.
So he was aiming high, trying to bring a bit of Europe to America.
And he didn't just talk about it, he did something about it. Back in 1939, he had this custom Lincoln Zephyr convertible built. Essentially, it was his personal vacation car.
Oh, a vacation car, so nothing too serious then.
Oh, but it was serious. This wasn't just any beach cruiser, it was a statement piece. Low, sleek profile, hand-hammered body panels.
Hand-hammered. Now that's some serious craftsmanship.
And get this, the spare tire was mounted on the back.
Wait, are we talking about that iconic Continental kit look?
The one and only. It started right there with Edsel's vacation car.
So hold on. He basically invented a whole styling trend with his vacation car.
Pretty much.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It just goes to show how these small design choices can end up defining an entire era.
Absolutely. Now, the first generation Continental produced from 1940 to 48, it really was the birth of an icon. And to think, those body panels all hand-hammered, a completely different era of car production.
It's hard to even imagine that level of detail and craftsmanship these days.
Oh, and one more thing about the first Continental. It was one of the last American cars to have a factory-made V12 engine.
A V12. Now that's something special. It wasn't just any engine. Right?
No, sir. Back then, a V12 was a statement. Power. Prestige. Edsel wasn't messing around. He wanted a smooth, powerful ride, something that set the Continental apart from everything else on the road.
He got what he wanted then.
He sure did. Now, of course, World War II threw a wrench in things. Production stopped for a while. But when the Continental came back in '56, it came back swinging.
Yeah, and this is where we get the Mark II, right?
The ultra-luxurious, almost mythical Continental Mark II.
The one that everyone talks about.
This was a car that was meant to compete with Rolls-Royce. Think about that.
Wow, so we're talking top-tier luxury here.
Top tier and then some. It cost about $10,000 back then, more than double the average American's yearly salary.
So this wasn't a car for the everyday person?
No, this was for the elite.
Yeah.
Movie stars, captains of industry. If you owned a Mark II, you'd made it.
And those suicide doors, or, coach doors, as some people call them, they just scream luxury.
You open those doors, and it's like you're entering a whole different world. But they weren't just for style.
Oh, they had a practical purpose.
Absolutely. The Mark II had a low, sleek roofline, and those rear-hinged doors made it much easier for passengers to, get in and out gracefully.
So style and function, all in one. But Ford knew that if the Continental was going to be a lasting success, it couldn't just be a millionaire's toy.
Right. They needed to reach a wider audience.
To make it more accessible, I guess.
Exactly. And that's what they did with the Mark III, IV, and V, which they produced from 1958 to 1960. They brought the price down significantly.
Still luxury cars, though, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
But they were aiming for a broader market. Like they were inventing the idea of aspirational luxury, you know?
I see what you mean. It wasn't just for the super rich anymore. It was something you could dream of owning someday. And they didn't just lower the price, did they? I mean, they kept innovating. They introduced FM radio. Can you imagine a car without FM radio today?
Hard to believe, right? But back then, that was a big deal.
It really highlights how much the automotive world has changed over the years.
And they even had this auto lube system, self-lubricating. Pretty advanced for the time.
It seems like they were always looking for ways to make the Continental stand out, both in terms of style and technology.
Always pushing the boundaries. Now then the 60s rolled around, and this is where the Continental really cemented its place as an icon.
Ah, the 60s, an era of style and revolution. So what did the Continental bring to the party?
It brought a design revolution. The fourth generation, introduced in 61, brought back those iconic coach doors, had these clean, elegant lines.
I can picture it now.
And they even offered a retractable roof on the convertible model.
Talk about stylish. Was that the car that really captured the spirit of the time, do you think? I mean, the 60s were about optimism, glamour, and it seems like the Continental embodied all of that.
Absolutely. And it was driven by everyone, Hollywood celebrities, the President of the United States. It was the car to have.
Speaking of the president, we can't ignore the tragic connection the Continental has to President Kennedy.
The modified 1961 Continental limo he was assassinated in. A stark reminder of that day.
A piece of history now, isn't it?
It is. It's on display at the Henry Ford Museum.
A reminder of how intertwined the Continental's story is with American history, the good and the bad. But the Continental's journey continued, right?
It did. Onward to the 70s and 80s. A changing world.
So how did the Continental adapt to a new era?
Well, think about the fuel crisis. Think about changing consumer tastes. New competitors entering the market.
The Continental couldn't just rest on its laurels, could it?
Not at all. The fifth generation, introduced in 1970, embraced the era's love of, well, opulence.
Bigger, bolder, more luxurious.
You got it. But they also had to consider fuel efficiency.
How did they manage to balance those two things, opulence and fuel efficiency? Seems like a tough act.
It was. But they did it. They kept the luxurious amenities, but made the car more practical for, everyday driving.
Right.
And they kept things exciting with those special editions.
Oh, tell me about those.
Well, for example, the Golden Anniversary Edition, released in '71 to celebrate Lincoln's 50th anniversary.
What was so special about it?
Gorgeous gold color. And listen to this. The keys were plated in 22-karat gold, presented in a jewelry box.
Wow. Now that's what I call celebrating an anniversary in style.
They went all out. But then in 1980, they had to downsize with the sixth generation.
Downsize, why was that?
The times, they were changing. Stricter fuel economy standards, a shift in buyer preferences. So they made the Continental smaller, lighter.
A more practical luxury car for a new decade.
Right. And they introduced some pretty advanced features for the time. Electronic fuel injection, a 4-speed automatic overdrive transmission.
They were showing everyone that you could have fuel efficiency and luxury at the same time. But wait, didn't the sixth generation Continental only last a year?
You're right. A bit of a historical oddity. They rebranded it as the Lincoln Town Car in '81.
What? Why would they do that?
It freed up the Continental name for something new, something a bit more European-inspired.
Oh, tell me more.
In '82, they launched the seventh generation Continental. Smaller, sleeker, designed to go head-to-head with the Cadillac Seville.
Back to their roots, in a way. Focusing on personal luxury, but in a more, shall we say, manageable package.
Exactly. And they even brought back that Continental spare tire look on the back. You know, that design element we talked about earlier?
Paying homage to their heritage. I love that.
Yeah.
But they didn't just rely on nostalgia, did they? They kept innovating.
Of course. The seventh generation was all about ride comfort. Gas-charged shock absorbers, which were a first for American cars, and later on, four-wheel air springs. They wanted to create the smoothest, most luxurious driving experience possible.
And didn't they even try a diesel engine for a bit?
They did. Sourced it from BMW, no less. But it didn't really catch on here in the U.S.
Probably for the best, looking back.
Yeah.
But it shows that they were willing to experiment.
Always pushing the envelope. Now, the seventh generation really marked a shift towards a more modern, technologically advanced Continental.
And that continued with the eighth generation, right?
Okay.
Which debuted in 1988.
Yep. And here's a surprise. It was front-wheel drive.
Really?
Yeah.
Front-wheel drive, that seems like a pretty big change for a car known for its size and power.
It was a bold move, reflecting the industry's shift towards, smaller, more fuel-efficient platforms.
It was a different era.
But they didn't skimp on the features. The eighth generation was actually the biggest front-wheel drive car on the market in '88.
So they were still going for that big, luxurious feel.
Always. And they were making history with safety, too.
Oh, how so?
The 1989 Continental was the first American car to have dual airbags as standard equipment, a game changer for safety.
You're absolutely right. We take airbags for granted today, but that was a huge deal back then.
It showed that Lincoln was serious about protecting their passengers, while also pushing the boundaries of automotive design. Oh, and they also went back to the classic four-door sedan style with the eighth generation.
Why did they do that?
They realized that the two-door coupe of the seventh generation wasn't quite hitting the mark with their target audience.
So they listened to their customers and adapted.
They always did. And this constant evolution, this willingness to adapt, is what kept the Continental relevant for so long. But now let's talk about the ninth generation, which came out in '95.
The ninth generation, huh? What's the story with that one? Seems like it might be a bit more controversial.
It's a mixed bag for sure. They went for a more rounded, aerodynamic design, in line with the trends of the time.
Some more modern look.
Exactly. It was also the last generation to have a V8 engine, a 4.6-liter V8. Powerful, yes, but not as iconic as the bigger V8s from the past.
A bit of a departure.
But they did keep innovating. Introduced air ride suspension on all four wheels right from the start, and then later, a rear air suspension system. Always focused on that smooth, luxurious ride.
That's interesting. So they were still pushing the boundaries in terms of technology.
Absolutely. But even with all those advancements, the ninth generation faced some tough competition, especially from European and Japanese luxury brands.
The market was changing, wasn't it? Getting more crowded.
It was. And it seems like the Continental, despite its strengths, was struggling to stand out.
It's a shame. They even tried lowering the base price in '97 to be more competitive.
They did. But it wasn't enough. It's a reminder that even legendary cars can fall victim to market forces, Sometimes it's just not the right time, not the right place. They gave it a facelift in '98, updated the styling, the dashboard.
Trying to give it a boost.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
sales kept dropping. And then, well, sadly, in 2002, Lincoln decided to discontinue the Continental.
After an incredible 53-year run. The end of an era.
It was. They did release some special models in those final years. The limited edition, the collector's edition.
The last hurrah for a legend.
Exactly. But it was clear that the Continental, at least in its current form, was coming to an end.
It's always bittersweet when a car with such a rich history comes to an end.
It is. But it's important to remember the impact it had, the legacy it left behind. And who knows? Maybe it's not truly the end.
You think we might see the Continental return someday?
I wouldn't rule it out. But before we delve into that, I think it's time we take a closer look at what made the Continental so special, so iconic.
Yes. Let's explore those design elements that captured imaginations and set trends for decades.
The heart and soul of the Continental.
That's what we're here for.
Back again for more on the Lincoln Continental.
We're ready to keep going. In part one, we took that amazing trip through the Continental's journey, right? From Edsel Ford's dream to all those big changes over the decades. But now let's sort of, pop the hood and really get into those design elements that made this car such a legend.
Those iconic design elements, that's what we're here for.
Absolutely. Let's start with those coach doors. They're so elegant, so distinctive. They just scream luxury to me. What's the story there?
Well, they weren't just about looks. Back in the early '60s, when Elwood Engel was designing the fourth generation Continental, he really wanted this long, sleek profile. And traditional doors, they would got in the way.
Oh, I see what you mean. You'd need a taller roof line, and it wouldn't be as streamlined.
Exactly. You got it. So those coach doors, they were actually a solution.
A practical solution to a design problem. That's pretty cool.
They were, and a brilliant one, I'd say. Those doors allowed Engel to keep that low roofline while still giving people in the back plenty of space.
It's like they were both stylish and functional.
A win-win for sure. And it really became one of those signature Continental features.
Even today, if you see a car with those doors, you instantly think high-end, exclusive.
It's like a secret code for this is a luxury car.
I love that Lincoln brought them back for that 10th generation Continental, The coach door edition. It's felt like such a great tribute to the car's history.
They were serious about those doors, too. They had to extend the wheelbase, reinforce the frame. Like, it was a big engineering project.
It's like they weren't messing around.
Not at all.
So, speaking of those iconic design elements, we have to talk about that Continental spare tire look on the trunk. It's such a recognizable thing. But it's a little quirky, too, isn't it?
Why do you think that detail resonated with people so much?
You know, I think it goes back to that European influence we talked about before, the one that Edsel Ford loved. Back in the 1930s, lots of those European luxury cars still had their spare tires mounted on the outside of the car.
Yeah, I've seen that in pictures.
They'd often have these streamlined covers over them, you know.
Yeah.
And it was practical, but it was also a sign of, well, sophistication.
So Edsel brought that design element to the Continental, even though the spare tire was actually tucked away inside the trunk. You got it. It was like a little nod to those European cars, but also created this really unique look, something that set the Continental apart from other American cars.
So it wasn't just a copy, it was its own thing.
Exactly. And it became so popular that people started calling any aftermarket spare tire cover a Continental kit. Amazing, right?
It's crazy how one little design choice can have such a big impact how long it lasts.
The Continental wasn't just a car. It really influenced a lot of things: fashion, music, how we thought about luxury.
It's true. Okay, so we've talked about the outside, those really striking details. Let's go inside now. What about the interior design? What made it so special?
Comfort and luxury, that was always the focus. They used the best materials.
Give me some examples.
Bridge of wear leather, real wood trim. It was all about creating this elegant, sophisticated atmosphere, like you're stepping into a high-end lounge, you know.
I could almost feel it.
And Lincoln was always pushing the boundaries with their seating. Like, remember those 30-way adjustable seats in the 10th generation?
I do. It was like sitting in a custom-made throne.
Exactly. They were all about making driving enjoyable as it could be.
Making a statement about luxury.
Right. But it wasn't just about comfort. They were innovative, too. That digital instrument panel they put in the 1980 Continental.
Oh, yeah. That was pretty futuristic for its time.
It was. And then, in the 10th generation, they got rid of that traditional gear shifter and put in those PRNDS buttons instead.
I remember that. It was definitely different.
It was. And maybe a little controversial, but, you know, it freed up space on the console.
So it's practical, too.
Exactly. They weren't afraid to try new things, you know? And let's not forget about the sound systems. Lincoln teamed up with some of the best audio brands out there, JBL, Revel. They were trying to create these incredible sound experiences.
It was about making the car this kind of, like, sanctuary, right?
Yeah.
A place where you could just shut out the world and enjoy the ride.
Exactly.
So speaking of enjoying the ride, let's
Amen.
talk about the cultural impact of the Continental. How did this car become such a symbol of American luxury and, you know, aspiration?
It goes all the way back to Edsel Ford.
All right.
Remember, he wanted to make the best car in the world. That's a big statement. And people responded to that.
It was about more than just the car itself.
It was about success, sophistication, a certain level of exclusivity.
And then there were the celebrities.
Yeah.
If you were a big name in Hollywood, you had to have a Continental. Frank Sinatra, Elvis Presley, the list goes on.
Absolutely. And seeing those stars driving around in their Continentals, well, that just added to the car's mystique. It became synonymous with the good life,
Glamour, achievement.
the whole package.
And of course, there's the presidential connection. The Continental, especially that fourth generation, became the car of the President of the United States.
It really did. It became this symbol of power and prestige, and it cemented the Continental's place in American history, for sure.
But that connection also brought some tragedy, right?
You're talking about the assassination of President Kennedy in that modified 1961 Continental limousine.
It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? The Continental's place in some of those really big moments of the 20th century, both the good and the bad.
It is, but it also reminds us how powerful design and engineering can be, how we can create something truly special, something that transcends time. Speaking of time, what do you think about the future of the Continental?
It's a good question. Is there still a place for a car like this? In a world that's so into SUVs, into electric cars?
I think the market has definitely changed since the days when the Continental was king, but I don't think it's over.
Oh, you think there's still room for a big, luxurious sedan like the Continental?
People still value comfort, style, and, a refined driving experience. Imagine a Continental that embraces the future.
What do you mean?
What if it was all electric, a combination of heritage and cutting-edge technology?
A statement of, like, sustainable luxury.
Exactly. It would be bold, But Lincoln has shown us they're not afraid of taking risks. And with the right design, the right features, and the right message, a new Continental could really resonate with a new generation.
I think you're onto something there. Respect the heritage, embrace innovation, and prove that a classic can still be relevant in a modern world.
That's what the Lincoln Continental has always been about. Pushing boundaries, redefining what's possible. Who knows, maybe we'll see a new chapter in the Continental story sooner than we think.
I like the way you think. That's something to think about as we head into part 3 of our deep dive.
We're going to take a closer look at some of those incredible Continentals out there. The special editions, the one-of-a-kind, custom creations. It's going to be a visual feast.
Sounds good to me. Join us for part 3, where we'll keep exploring the Lincoln Continental, an American icon that's left a lasting mark on design and culture. Back again with the deep dive, Vintage Car Chronicles fans. We're wrapping up our luxurious trip through the history of the Lincoln Continental. But, we saved the best for last.
We did. Parts 1 and 2, we went through, the Continental's whole evolution, that iconic design, its place in culture. But now we get to look at some of the coolest Continentals ever made.
I'm ready. Let's start with a car fit for, well, a king. Elvis Presley's 1956 Continental Mark II.
Elvis, he knew how to live large, and his Continental was no exception. Picture it. Sleek black exterior, white and gold interior. Pure rock and roll royalty.
It's iconic. And Elvis wasn't alone, right? Lots of celebrities fell for the Continental.
Oh, yeah. Frank Sinatra owned a few, I think.
He did. I think one was a 61 model. He was always driving it around Palm Springs.
Classic Rat Pack style. I could just see him cruising with Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr.
It's the perfect image of 60s cool. And of course, we can't forget the presidential Continentals. That modified 1961 limo that President Kennedy rode in.
A powerful piece of history. It's at the Henry Ford Museum now.
It really makes you think about that day. But presidential Continentals weren't always so, serious.
Oh, right. Like, didn't Nixon's limo have a sunroof?
It did. A sunroof so he could stand up and wave during motorcades.
That's wild to think about.
Now, let's get into those special edition Continentals. The ones Lincoln released over the years. They always seem to be experimenting, pushing the boundaries, limited run models, different colors, interiors, even performance upgrades.
Absolutely. Take the Golden Anniversary Town Car, for example,
Yep.
1971. They really pulled out all the stops for Lincoln's 50th anniversary.
I remember reading about that one.
Had this special gold paint job, and get this, the keys were plated in 22-karat gold.
Oh,
Came in a jewelry box.
those keys must be worth a fortune today.
And then there's the Williamsburg edition,
Yeah.
77 to 79. That one had the classic two-tone paint, a full vinyl roof, and those incredible comfort lounge seats inside.
It's supposed to feel like, colonial Williamsburg.
Yeah.
Elegant, historic.
Right. And we can't forget the Collector's Series from 79, the 5th generation's grand finale. It had every feature you could imagine. Moonroof, a CB radio, peak 70s Continental luxury.
It sounds amazing. And those special editions kept coming, right? Even into the 90s.
Oh, yeah. They did the 50th anniversary edition in 1990, the Diamond Anniversary edition in 96. Every one was a celebration, showcasing the best of Lincoln's design. But you know what I think is really interesting?
About that.
The 2002 Continental concept car? It was like nothing they'd ever done before.
Oh, yeah. I've seen pictures. It was totally different from the Continentals they were making back then.
They went all futuristic with it. 6.0-liter V12 engine, those rear-hinged coach doors, sleek aerodynamic body.
Like something out of a movie.
It never made it to production, though.
Too bad.
I know. But you know what's funny? Some of those design elements, that roofline, that bold front end, they actually ended up influencing later Lincoln models.
It's like its spirit lived on. It just shows you that even concept cars can make an impact, even if we never see them on the road.
They're like design experiments,
Oh.
pushing the boundaries of what's possible. And the Lincoln Continental has always been about that, pushing boundaries.
Well said. As we wrap up this deep dive, I keep thinking about the Continental's incredible run. It's seen it all. Triumphs, tragedies, those big reinventions, comebacks. It's a true symbol of iconic design and, that American spirit.
And even though the Continental's not being made right now, its legacy is still going strong.
It is. It's inspiring car enthusiasts, designers, and anyone who loves a great car story. And who knows, maybe we'll see the Continental make a comeback someday, ready to capture a new generation.
That'd be amazing. But until then, we can enjoy its history and the impact it's had on the world of cars.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Lincoln Continental Vintage Car Chronicles fans.
And don't forget to tune in to Vintage Car Chronicles every day for more great car stories.
We'll see you next time.